Hi everyone, this is Kyle Marshall, aka Againstime from grinderschool.com. Today I'll be playing a live set for you on the Ultimate Poker Network. This hand we just played here, the original raiser under the gun, min raised. We had a flat call in a relatively early position, and I flat called as well. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this hand before it gets too far away. Anytime you have someone raise into 6 players, if it's a fairly loose reg or loose player, you can 3-bet with 9s in the 25-50. However, in that particular situation, we were getting set odds, so I just chose to flat call in position and evaluate on the flop. Both players checked, and we had 3 fairly low cards, only one over with the 10, and so when they checked to me, I just bet out a little over half pot. Just tried to take it down when I felt my hand was ahead before more face cards or over cards came off. And so I just tried to take it down fairly cheap there to talk about that one. This one with the ace-9, we will be raising this into 5 players. It's pretty standard in this blind level. You wouldn't be doing this in an earlier blind level. In the 25-50, you might elect to just fold this in this position. Raise wouldn't be awful, but it would be fairly loose. For most of you who know about Ultimate Poker, these are 7-handed tournaments. Top 3 get paid. The prize structure is 50, 30, 20, similar to what you would see on Full Tilt Poker or Poker Stars. The only difference is we are starting with 7 players instead of 9, so there's less variance. Also, at the same time, there's a little less prize money in the pool. The lower variance I kind of like. The tournaments are also formatted so they all last about 30 to 40 minutes if you end up, cashing or winning the thing. And so you can get quite a few of these in, a lot of volume, so that's nice as well. The blinds started in the 15-30 instead of what's traditional, which is the 10-20 or the 5-10. So you do lose 1 or 2 blind levels, but overall I really like the structure of the games. You can get a lot of them going at once, and they tend to finish up pretty quickly, so that's nice as well. Here with the King Queen, we'll make our standard raise. I consider 2.5x to be pretty standard in this blind level for me. I used to make it 90. It's not really a big deal either way, but I'm just always trying to conserve chips. Don't really need to spend more than is necessary to accomplish my goals. Anytime I can spend fewer chips to do something, I will traditionally do it if I can get the same result. We will steal that. Got a few more games loading up as well. I try to hold it at around 4 games. I find that to be a good number. I think any more than that, and we really have too much going on, and less than that, we don't have enough to talk about. So I think it's a good number, around 3 to 5. Here we will raise with the ace-4 suited. This I would consider to be a little loose in this blind level. Normally I'd raise this from the cutoff. I don't like to fold it from the hijack. I think it's a little too tight to do so. And in the face of any 3 bets, we can just get out of the way without a problem. It's a pretty easy decision for us in the early blinds. As most of you know, I'm a proponent of playing a tight aggressive early game and then expanding our ranges in the later blinds when they're more worth stealing, and trying to do more of that in the higher blinds. So we'll just let go of this ace-4 suit, as I had said. Very few situations would have been calling there. Here with the ace-8, I'll just go ahead and limp. If my opponent makes a raise, I will shove all in over the top. If he checks, then I will just try to stab at the flop, as you'll see here. I'm just going to bet 120. If I take it down, I'm happy with that. If my opponent calls, I'll probably just let it go, and we will take it down. The reason why I like to limp in there is because if I raise there and my opponent shoves all in, I have a tough decision. And if I raise there and my opponent flat calls, I also have a fairly tough decision in that I'll have to c-bet on the flop, but I don't really have a lot of room to maneuver with. And so I really like playing it that way. It allows you to be the ultimate aggressor by coming over the top if your opponent does make the initial raise. We'll just let this one go here with the King Queen. It wouldn't have been horrible to ISO raise out of position here, but in the early blinds, again, we're trying to minimize variance. Is the only reason you didn't see me do that. So anyway, as I said, if you limp in with the ace-8 and they raise there, you can shove all over the top as the aggressor. If they just check, you can stab for cheap on the flop, and you only have to take it down about 1 time in 3 if you bet about half pot. So it's a really good situation to play hand between about 12 and 25 blinds there. We'll let the queen-4 go. Try to prevent too many more games from loading up quickly here. Don't really want to have more than that we can show on the screen. Easy fold with the jack 3. Here you shouldn't be limping at all when you're getting this short. Even after a limper, there should be very few hands that you should pretty much be limping at all here. I'm just going to make an ISO raise here. You could make it 225, 250, anything in that vicinity is reasonable. You want to try to make it a little bit smaller so that you can have the opportunity to c-bet and still get away from the hand. We'll just call this bet with the 8s here. We are getting set odds just barely. And we'll c-bet this flop. We're looking to get all in here. Having top pair, top kicker on this board, this is too strong for us to fold. I'm just going to bet a fairly strong bet on the flop and then commit on the turn. Here with the 8s, we'll just check. This is a pretty horrible flop for us with 2 opponents. Almost never will we be ahead here. So we'll just probably check this and let it go. 4-8 can be folded. We'll just check behind here again with the 8s, just hoping for a free showdown in this spot. When you get those under the gun raises like this in the 25-50 and you have a pair like 7s, 8s, 9s, it's kind of a hard spot to play because a lot of times if you 3-bet, your opponent will fold all hands that you're beating. And if you just flat call there, you're still getting fairly good odds. You can play with position. I think that's generally the best way to go into 25-50 with about 30 blinds left, is to flat call those raises rather than 3-bet. It's not awful to 3-bet. I think folding is usually the worst play. I think letting a hand that strong go is still not the right way to play. And then, the 50, 100 and after, you would be 3-betting all in over the top, just to give you kind of an idea of how you would play with similar stack sizes. Here with the aces, I'm probably not going to get cute with it and make a small 3-bet. I think that would look more suspicious. I'm most likely just going to shove all in this situation. It's possible I won't get any calls except for maybe this short stack. However, I really don't want a big multi-way pot when I make kind of an awkward 3-bet here, and I think that might influence a lot of people to just fold it because it looks like I have a strong hand. We got a pretty good situation here. It looks like we're just going to get called, I think, here and here of a 3-way showdown against one player who doesn't have enough chips to completely detriment us, and we will obviously have the best hand going into this. So this is a really good situation for us. One of our opponents did manage to spike a king here. Nothing we can do about that. Obviously, this is an excellent situation to get all in as a huge favorite like this. And I recommend you just open shove that there. I don't think there's any reason to get cute about it. Here I'll actually float with this pair of 3s. My opponent's unlikely to have hit this board, and if he shuts down the turn, I'll take it just by making a half pot size bet. If he bets again, as he did, this is a pot size bet, fairly strong here. Just let it go. No reason to get overly involved early on with the pair of 3s. I would have also just flat called here in a lot of situations where I had a strong hand as well to kind of blend my range. So here we're looking to get involved in almost any marginal situation. This isn't quite good enough though. This is the one where we had the aces. It's okay to raise here in the small blind with the ace-jack. I would suggest raising more than limping with these stack sizes. If we were a little narrower stack, like around 800 chips or something, I might do that limp resteal play that you saw earlier. Obviously getting all in with the king-jack. I will try to load up another game as well. Had some unfortunate luck with our aces. This you can raise, and to 5 players, I would consider it quite aggressive. However, everyone behind us, we can get out of the way if they shove all in. We will fold if Captain Bart shoves, but I won't be particularly happy about it. However, it is a good spot to show a lot of strength that we really don't have and just kind of come in with a cheap, unexpected steal in games where we've played fairly tight so far. That's why we use that tight image there. Got another game loaded up here. I'll just keep it off to the side until we are ready for it. Fold the 9-5. With the 7s here, I'm not especially confident with someone raising into 5 players, especially there being short stacks behind. However, with 4 blinds, you should never be folding a pair in the spot, and we will get all in and commit as we should. Could be behind here, but with the hand this strong, we just shouldn't be running away. We're happy to run into king-queen, and had I even seen his hand, I would have definitely taken this flip considering how short we were. So nothing wrong with this situation at all, perfectly fine. We will survive in this game. I will try to bring in the game off screen and just show you the decisions I'm making. It's still fairly on there, so it should be mostly straightforward. We're folding the 9-6 even from the button here. I'm very rarely making unnecessary steals in the early levels because the blinds aren't really worth taking, and it creates an aggressive image which we can't abuse as effectively later on. Alright, we have a raise from the hijack, and I have 9-8. I'm just going to let it go here. Take that game off screen. Oops, sorry. Fold the 7-9, fold the queen 4. Here I'm looking for a lot of good opportunities to shove over a limper. This player hasn't done this to me too much, so this is just barely worse than shoving right here. King 8 suited would be a shove. We're looking for players who like to limp in our blinds, and we have 15 blinds or less. We'll be looking to shove over those. However, this hand isn't quite strong enough for a 13.5 blind effective shove, and I haven't seen too much of this, so we're just letting it go at this point. And this is a board where we could still have showdown value, but we don't really want to bet out. Anytime we get called, we're behind. So it's best to just try to see the cheap showdown here. Weren't able to do so, so just let it go. Keep in mind this player limped, and look for opportunities to shove on that in the future. This player will also be trapping you with their strong hands, and sometimes that will happen when you'll shove and you'll run into a big hand. But for all the times you shove over marginal hands and take it away, it'll be worth it. And sometimes even when you do get called, you'll come out ahead here. Hold the king 7. With the 8s here, we're expected to be ahead of any 6 blind shove, even from a tight player here, so we just have to commit with our 8s and hope it's good. Easy shove here with the 8-6. 13 blinds or less, blind versus blind, you should be looking for shove or fold situations. Shouldn't be limping in very much there at all. There are some opponents where it can be profitable to do so if they rarely raise, however, in general, that should be avoided. So this situation worked out pretty well for us, and we will move into the money. Off screen, I'll bring it over. I'm folding ace deuce into 5 players in the 1530. Should be fairly standard for you. Should almost never be raising that into 5 players. Even in the 5100, I would consider that fairly overly aggressive and not really a profitable raise. Here with the king jack suited, you have a variety of options. You can make a small raise or you can shove. Both plays are perfectly fine. The ace-6 is a standard shove for 12 blinds on the button. I like the small raise a little bit better in both of these spots here because we can call a resteal, and our hand plays very well post-flop. So for a variety of reasons, we're in a good situation just to make the small raise. If it were something like a small pair where I couldn't play well post-flop, I'd be more inclined to just make the open shove. Here with the ace-jack at 11 blinds from the cutoff, that should just be a standard shove. And we can fold this king 7 here. So it looks like we took both of those hands down. 7s here is an open shove. You'll notice that even though we have a little over 12 blinds that might consider a small raise, 3 of the 4 players behind us have less than 10 blinds. So you can just go ahead and shove that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's probably the better way to play it, in fact, in this situation. Looks like we'll run into a pair of queens here. As far as pairs that you would shove here, any pair actually you would be shoving there in that situation where you saw me shove the 7s. You would actually get all in with any pair at all. Here we'll make a small raise with the king 8. I would do that with a fair amount of hands, and I would shove a fair amount of hands here. So we have a little bit of a blended range. I would probably make this small raise with massive hands just as I would marginal ones to kind of blend it. We do get a massive lead out for a pot-sized bet here. This is a shove at the 5-6 suited. And so we really can't continue on with no hand, no pair. You'd be looking to shove just about anything reasonable in the spot with a 5-6 suited. The player in the big blind has a fairly decent stack size, so he's good to shove through. Only this captain barter we worry about getting involved fairly loose. We'll take that one down. Again, here under the gun, we're looking for at about 7 blinds. Any reasonable opportunity, any pair will certainly suffice here. Apologize, I got a few more games going than I intended. I will try to bring them over shortly. King 9 here will be an open shove for 12, about 13 blinds, blind versus blind. Can't go much looser than this, but it's better to shove it than to just limp and have your opponent shove and have to fold. Queen 9 for 10 blinds on the button is a standard shove. Yeah, it's better to just shove this and to limp and have your opponent shove and not be able to call. It does play fairly well post-flop if you want to do that limp steal kind of play, but if they make the raise, I wouldn't be inclined to come over the top, so I definitely think it's better to just open shove with the king 9 and close it out. Easy shove with the fours here, as I said. Easy call with the ace-7. Nothing wrong with either play. Off screen, I will be folding this king-5 to a min-raise. Not calling here even for 50 chips, just to show you how tight I believe that you should be playing in the first two blind levels. You want your opponents to feel that they can get those steals and take advantage, and then when the blinds are worth it, as I've said, then that's when you bring it back. And then one re-steal or one steal opportunity in the late blinds is worth more than 3 or 4 in the early blinds, and so that's why I believe in that approach so much. Off screen, I will be folding the king-10 in an early position here. We also have a king-10 on the other table. I'll just be limping with that. We're getting fairly good odds here. 6-5, won't be calling that shove. Won't be calling this one as well. The king-10 here, I'm actually just going to lead out. I don't do this a lot, but my hand is fairly strong here. I have quite a few opponents. I don't want to see a free card come off, and I think a check raise is a little too committing in the 25-50s, so I'll just do it like this. I'm going to lead out again here. My opponent doesn't have a lot of chips left, so I'm probably going to have to commit against him. We'll fold the ace-9, shove the king-9. All in here is pretty standard for 10 blinds, folded 9-3. Sorry for having so much going on here. And we will just go ahead and get all in here. I may have the worst hand, but I feel committed with top pair second kicker against such a short stack, and we will take it down. King-3 should be a fold for 11 blinds on the button. Not enough room to make a raise and a fold, so we'll just let anything we can't shove go. At 11 blinds, I pretty much play a shove-fold game as well, with few exceptions. This shove under the gun would be done with any reasonable hands that we have to isolate with our king-10 suited, just as we would open shove with it. 3-deuce suited here is going to be, you can actually shove or fold this. I'm going to shove it. Either play is fine. It's kind of an any two spot. You can go for it sometimes and let it go sometimes. You want to mix it in. And we'll go ahead and go for it there. And we did come out ahead of this queen-jack. Hopefully our hand will hold. It's worth keeping in mind that our opponent would shove a lot of hands worse than queen-jack here as well. Jack-10 suited is a super standard easy shove here in this position. Queen-4 will fold off screen. And ace-king is obviously an easy call. We'll be looking to try to move into the money on some of these other games as well. This 600 raise and things like that, you shouldn't be seeing $600 raises. You really want to be conserving chips, as I said. You want your raises to be between 2.25 and 2.5x is a good target. Even a min raise is fine, but big raises are not the way to go in the later blind levels. Standard raise with the ace queen. I'll bring this over as well. Fold the queen-9. Jack deuce is an easy fold. Queen-10, you can call or fold here. I'm going to let it go. I think this player isn't knowledgeable enough to be shoving sufficiently wide, so I think that it's best to just get out of the way. We have a pair of 8s here. I'm going to make it 225, standard raise. Same table where I raised the ace-queen. I believe no one called and I just took it down. Over here on the other game, we have 4-9 offsuit. Fold that. We'll be looking to call shove blind versus blind against pretty much any player for 10 blinds with king-queen. That should be a pretty set standard. I can't imagine anyone ever being tight enough that you wouldn't call with king-queen there. This is an interesting spot right here. 10 blinds from the hijack. An unknown you would fold this. However, I know this player very well, and I may call here and face a bigger hand. However, I do need to call. This player would shove any suited ace. I'm 100% sure of that, and so we cannot fold ace-9 suited here. As you see, we run into ace-8. He would also shove other hands weaker than that. This is a very good reg who knows exactly how to shove wide, and so that's why we can make those good metagame calls. Against an unknown, I would consider that to be a fairly brave call. Here we have to call for the 10 blind shove at 9, super standard. And we will eliminate our toughest opponent, which is always nice. Fold the 3-9. Queen deuce suited here, just let it go. If we raise, we're committed against this player. It wouldn't be bad to just make a small raise there into the call this player's shove, but I think it's better to just get out of the way when he's so likely to commit himself as he is. Wouldn't have minded a small raise. I really think the two plays are about break even. I'm just looking for better opportunities. We'll make a small raise here with the aces. Um, Obviously, if our opponent shoves, we'll be happy to call. You could shove the ace-3 here because of the bubble situation and let this 10-9 go. Queen 9 we will raise, even with the short stacks there. Aces here, let me bring this game over. We'll just make our standard c-bet. And this is why I try to keep the game count a little lower. Easy shove with the ace-10 suited, fold the 5-7. Looks like we timed out, I apologize over here. And we'll c-bet this one as well. We'll just go ahead and get it all in because this player is essentially committed. It would have been fine to make a smaller bet or a check there as well. We will fold here with 9-8. Want to keep the bubble alive and preserve that so we can continue to increase our equity. Ace-10 suited was super standard shove. Ace-queen is a standard call here. King-queen will shove. And we took down the hand with the aces. 8-7, you could shove or fold this. I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Our next hand is pretty much our last opportunity. Easy call here with the ace-8 suited. We'll go ahead and ISO that. Fold the 6-4. Get a limp here on the top right. Would shove over most limps, but with a king-8, not quite good enough there, I don't think. Let the 10-9 go. Easy call with the king-9, and easy shove with the 8-7, I feel. King-8 here, we got a limp. Player checks into us. We'll just check again. If he has a king here, he's definitely going to come along. With the two clubs, you could argue a c-bet here. I'm actually going to make a small raise here. Easy shove with the king-10. The reason why I'm making the raise isn't because I think my hand is necessarily that far ahead, but I'm trying to block a river bet and also get our opponent off of possibly a club draw here and make him pay for it. He leads out here for 200, probably his own blocking bet. We're pretty committed to call this, so we'll just call. No reason to raise here, only be getting called by hands that beat us. And it looks like we'll get a little more value out of it. Off screen here, we have the queen 10. I will raise this into these three players. Happy to commit against the short stacks. 10-6 is going to be a pretty standard shove, even against the short stack here. He will be looking to get involved light, but we need to be playing this really aggressively on the bubble. Deuces here, standard call, heads up. Hopefully we will take this game down. So I can bring another one over. I apologize for the overloading of games. That and sometimes happens when it looks like you're going to be eliminated and then you end up surviving. Alright, looks like our deuces will not hold. We'll just split it. 10-7 here is a fold. We'll be looking for a lot of good open shove opportunities. Jack-9 is obvious shove. I play the Nash push-fold equilibrium, as most of you know in these spots. King-9 here is barely a shove, but for 11 blinds, it's the only way you can play it. 7-9 here is an easy shove. And we took down the hand with the King-9 uncontested. Looks like we're having some pretty good results on our games over here, moving into the money and heads up. Games off screen also going fairly well. We'll fold this ace-6. 7-10 is also a fold. King-9, you just open raise it here. Happy to call the small stack. Queen-8, I suggest calling this shove for 6 blinds. I think it would be too tight to fold. You will be behind a fair amount, but we're getting really short here, and a queen high for about 6 blinds should be good in heads up most of the time. Even when it's not, you'll still draw out a fair amount, so we'll go ahead and call and get involved here. Won't work out for us this time. King-9 here, we'll just go ahead and c-bet. We don't really need to bet more than is necessary. I'm making a fairly small c-bet. So it looks like we'll finish second on this game. Good result for us. We'll close that out, take down the King-9 hand. I will bring over one of these other games. Alright, so fold the 7-8, fold the 5-6. This is almost a shove, and you could technically go for it. you're really just looking for a good opportunity. I just feel that these players are short enough that we can find maybe a better opportunity. We don't have a lot of time left to work with, though, and that's worth keeping in mind. Any suited connector I probably would have gone with. 8-4 suited we would have shoved here, but the big blind would be committed, so we'll just let that go. Against a random hand we are favored, or not favored. We'll let the Queen 10 go into the shove into the... we'll let the Queen 10 go here. Ace King you would shove. Queen 3 is a fold. King 10 here is a standard shove. It's calling with 7-6. I know this player is short with about 800 chips. It's okay. I feel that actually folding would be the better decision there. It worked out for him in that time. You are very committed. You do want to get involved fairly soon, but with 4 blinds or about 4 blinds, you can still fold in the bubble in the big blind if your hand is just extremely weak. Is okay, but it's fine either way. Not a huge deal. We'll actually float with the pair of 7s here, and I'll call with the deuces. I'm fairly committed here, looking to get involved. Even for a coin flip is fine. Just check the 7-9 here, hoping for a cheap showdown. Here off screen I have ace 10. Player shoves for just about 9 blinds here from the cutoff. We'll go ahead and get involved. It's not a great situation, but we're ready to be ahead a fair amount of time. Try to check it down with the pair of 7s, fold the jack 4. Okay, our opponent off screen had 8s and we had ace 10. That's a pretty standard exchange that you'll see. We'll let this one go. We don't want a 3-way showdown with a weak ace. We'll close this game out. And we'll let the 7-9 go. Can't really beat any hand here at all. This we would like to get involved, but there's a lot of players all in here. We're almost never having the best hand. We do have a hand that plays well in a multi-way showdown, however. I think it's best to just... It's actually super borderline. I'm going to call it. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with this situation. We have 6 blinds, and so really we're looking at probably not having the best hand, but we have a hand that's very likely to draw out, as you see. We have the potential flush draw there. We have king queen. The only thing I was worried about is running into ace king or ace queen, but even if we do, we're still looking at straight and flush draw opportunities. With 6 blinds, I kind of retract what I said. As you saw, I called there. I changed my mind. It's really close. I don't expect to have the best hand there very often. However, I think I have a hand that shows down well, and I think that I have such a large chance to move into a good position into the money, possibly as the chip leader. And so I chose to go ahead and call there, but just based on odds because there were so many players involved. I would have liked to fold it, and generally, if I had any more chips, I would. It was more of kind of a commitment question around the 6 blind range. If I had, I would say 8 blinds or more there, I probably would just let it go. Super standard here with the kings, queen 7, and head up. I'll call 75 here. Wouldn't call much more than that. And I'll just be trying to check this down. We'll take this one in first place, which is always a nice result. We'll bring over this game. I may be eliminated on it as I bring it over, but we will shove the jack 9. Check the 7-3. I will try to retile these for you. There we go. They are improving the software pretty quickly on this site. For the longest time, I felt that it was difficult to multi-table. It still kind of is without HUDs and hotkeys, really. I'm sure you can bind custom hotkeys, but no real HUDs available so far in Nevada. In New Jersey, they have already implemented HUDs on a lot of these sites, and so that's a nice feature. The Nash push-fold equilibrium is what we'll be following here. Any king high is actually a shove for 12 blinds. I don't like to do it. I think when we get called, we're almost always behind, a lot of times dominated. But I do play the Nash push-fold at like 15 blinds or less, generally starting heads up. And so this is a push. As I said, it's not one that I particularly like. I think it's a vulnerable shove, but it is one that you should be making. And we'll go ahead and try to do that, and we'll take it down. 7-5 here, you can shove. This is kind of an any 2 spot against a player with a fairly decent stack size who doesn't want to take too many risks. If we get called here, we're obviously almost always behind, but it's a good spot to try to lean and come out ahead. Here with the king 7, we have mid pair, no flush draw. We'll just check here. If our opponent checks behind, we'll be firing at most turns to just try to steal it. Wouldn't have been too bad to just lead out here for about 450, and if our opponent comes back at us, we can just let it go. We get a lot of resistance, however, so we'll just fold the queen 5 as well. I will try to bring another game in over here. 10-5, you can fold. 7s is it's just a shove here. You could make a small raise, but a shove is better because of the 2 short stacks. Queen 9 suited is a super standard shove. Pretty easy decisions across the board on all of our tables in that spot. Our opponent continues to limp here. We're going to start shoving over these limps. Could get caught by a bigger hand, as I've said before, but you have to be abusing those limps. In the long term, you'll come out ahead, even if you get caught on some occasions. This is a really bad trap. It happened to work out here, but there are very few opportunities where you'll trap with a Jack 9 and expect to be ahead. This is a really... He happened to have me dominated in this situation, but this is a really horrible way to play it. My opponent here should just be shoving 100%. If you're trapping with Jack 9 suited, I mean, I don't know what you're expecting. I mean, unless I have 10-9, or I pretty much have to have 10-9 or like 9-8 suited or something like that. But I would say something like 70-80% of the time he's coming out dominated trying to trap me. So that's not really a good way to play that. Here with the King 9, if you know your opponent to be shoving fairly loose, you can call here. However, I don't believe that's the case. I think my opponent has shoved a few times here, but I don't think this is someone that I can guarantee that my King 9 will be ahead. If it were a reg, I would have easily called there without any hesitation. Just to kind of give you an idea of an adjustment you would make based on the knowledge of your opponent. If you do continue to see a lot of shoves like that into relatively short stacks that are likely to commit, though, then you can make that adjustment and call with King 9. I consider this 6-8 suited shove super standard here. Would never be folding in that situation. Fold the 10-4. Try to load up some more games off screen here. Looks like we have a few more loading. It's about 10 o'clock at night here in Nevada, and we still have a fairly good amount of games going. Quite a bit of traffic. Jack 9 suited here, we'll just fold. Consider myself committed, so we won't be looking to shove over that. Ace Jack is an easy shove here. Looks like we have another game just about to load, and I'll try to get another one after that as well. With these games lasting approximately 30 minutes, it's really kind of a nice timing so that you can get a lot of times 2 sets in. In an hour, I mean. Here with the deuce 10 suited, we're looking to be shoving extremely wide. This player has 10 blinds in the big blind. I would say if we had a situation here where this player in the small blind had a little less, and the player in the big blind had about the same, that would be a fine shove. Or if the player in the big blind had about 1 blind or 2 blinds less, either one of those situations you could shove here. Neither one quite lined up, so we had to let it go. Thankfully, we would have been running into a not very favorable situation. Both of these players played their hands correctly with the shove and the call here, though. And we will move into the money once again, which is always a nice result. 9-8 suited here, we have to raise, and if the player in the big blind shoves, we actually have to call as well because he's at less than 10 blinds in our hand. Rates to win at least 1 time in 3 with the odds, so he just flat calls here, which isn't how you generally want to play his stack size. The flop isn't very good for us, however, and our opponent just shoves into us, giving us the easiest decision of all time, and we'll just fold it with no hand and no pair. Really shouldn't be flat calling to defend here, and if we had either 10 or a king or even the club draw, we'd probably come along there. I'll be looking to resteal here as I would with a lot of hands. May get called here, but you should be coming over the top with some fold equity in these spots. It's a really good situation where if we take down the pool automatically, we're in a really favorable spot. We also are looking for the win here because it's a step 4 tournament. We do have fold equity, and if we just flat call here, we'll be playing out of position. So I really like the resteal play. I think you should pretty much always be going for the resteal in that spot rather than just flat calling if you're going to get involved. Easy shove with the 10-8 suited, blind versus blind for about 8 or 9 blinds. Easy call with the king 10, should be calling with that instantly. Same thing here, super standard. Easy shove with the king deuce suited, easy call with the ace 8. Alright, we are going to move into the third place position with really not much to work with here. King high will obviously be worth getting involved with. We'll go ahead and shove that. We would fold a lot of weaker hands here in hopes that these players get involved, and in the next hand obviously we're committed no matter what. Easy raise with the 10s, and we'll fold the 8-5. We will live to see another day on this bottom left table. Got another game about to load up for you here. 10-5 with 2 blinds into the short stack. We're not having any fold equity here. It's better to take a random hand over a 10-5 offsuit, which is what I'll do. We do get a call here with the 10s, and I will c-bet this board. It's fairly coordinated, but we'll go ahead and c-bet this board even against 2 opponents. If they lead out into me, I'll probably just let it go. I think a fairly strong c-bet is appropriate here. We don't really want hands to be able to draw for cheap. Just going to try to take it down now, or our hand is ready to likely be okay. Any resistance here will probably slow it down on most turn cards. Jack 3, super close here. I think it's better to let it go. You could go either way with it. It's kind of marginal. I've been shoving a lot and getting all in a lot here. So we'll just go ahead and let it go. I think this player is also likely to commit. Pot odds committed here to call. Blind versus blind for about 4 or 5 blinds. You really shouldn't be folding a king high, so we'll call here. As you can see, your opponents will often show up with hands worse than yours. Even though a few times they do, it's still definitely worth it to go ahead and get involved here. 10-7, we'll just let it go. Try to get one more game if I can load it up fairly quickly. Looks like I will be able to do that. Alright, 5-3 suited is actually a shove here. I know it seems really loose, and it is. No argument at all for me that it is really loose. However, we play the Nash push-fold equilibrium. As you see, our opponent's even calling us with king deuce. He seems to be aware of how wide we're shoving. Even so, he can't gain a long-term advantage over us by calling that way. If he is calling according to the Nash push-fold equilibrium, he's actually breaking even. And if he's calling in any other way, he's losing. And so we're perfectly happy with that. Would have shoved, I think the range is like 87 to 90% there. It's really loose. And obviously we'll be calling here with the king 9. Ace 3 here, we limped in the small blind, see an ace on the flop. We'll just lead out for 40 here. Just try to take it down for cheap. Fold the 10-9. Looks like fortune will be in our favor here in the last 2 hands on the bottom left, and we will take down another first place. This will get us our step 5 ticket, so we will be buying into the step 5 tournament shortly as well. Don't know if there's probably one loading up right now, but if there is, I will load it. There actually is one loading. I'll queue it, but there's only 3 players in it. I think it'll be kind of a nice thing for you guys to see. There's a lot of strong regs in the step 5s. I don't normally play that high stakes in the recorded videos, like the $40 or $50 range, because I know a lot of players are, around the I'd say $1 to $20 game is where most of you are playing. We'll go ahead and get involved here, committed, of course. So I try to keep it around that range most of the time. However, if we're able to load up this game fairly quickly, I'll go ahead and play it for you. It's kind of hard to tell late at night. Sometimes they run, sometimes they don't. Queen Jack here into 6 players. You can just go ahead and let that go in the 15-30. That's perfectly fine. Looks like we will get 3rd place over here. Had a lot of good results so far. Had some good luck and some bad luck, and some situations with the King Queen where we were able to get involved and basically put ourselves in a situation to either be eliminated or move into an outstanding chip lead position. Some of them worked out and some of them didn't, but pretty good results so far. I do still fairly liberally from the cutoff, even in the 25-50. However, junk hands like this, even if it had been folded to us, you should just be releasing. Even from the button, I would suggest that early on. And as I mentioned before, so we can build up that tight image, so when we go to the 50-100, maybe we can make those steals and take more from them. All right. Trying to see what games I can load up here for you. We may have to stop it where it is. It doesn't look like anything else is going to come up quickly. We'll definitely finish out these two for you. If we get the step 5, like I said, I'll go ahead and start it. Otherwise, we'll just finish out these two. Jacks here is going to be an obvious raise. Had someone raised in front of me, I would have 3-bet. You're looking at a 3-bet around like 375, something like that. You don't really want to spend much more than that because you want to be able to c-bet and be able to get away from the hand. Should you have a board like ace, king, rag, those would be boards that you might not continue with and commit with the jacks. Here we're just looking to call for set odds. It shouldn't ever be min raising over a limp. It doesn't really accomplish much. You're building a pot, but everyone's calling you. You're giving them excellent odds. Not really finding out where you are pre-flop at all with that raise. So you're just building a pot without gaining any information, essentially. Could let this go with the 3 overs and the 3 opponents. Our step 5 is still at 4 out of 7, so may load up. I'll let the 5-3 suited go. This is actually closer than you might think. I'm not thinking about shoving here. I'm thinking about raising. I think it's too loose. Maybe king 9 suited you could raise here. But it's close. It's actually closer than you think. And from one position later, I would probably steal with it. You saw this 4x raise after this limp. I'm not a big fan of that. I think at this stack size, you should just be shoving over limps at about, I think he was at like 13 blinds pre-flop. I think it's better to just shove over the limps a lot of times in that spot. However, he chose not to do so. It's not bad. It's just that when you make that 4x ISO raise, you have to commit on the flop. And so it just pretty much binds you to the pot. Here with the queen jack, you can shove this. We're rated to be about equal with this player's limp range, and these players are likely to fold. We might take down 350 chips just automatically, which is what we did. And even in the times we don't, we're looking at kind of a heads-up confrontation where we're about even with our opponent's range and some dead money is in the pot. So both are good spots. You notice I didn't make that 4x ISO raise with all those opponents because had they called, I wouldn't be able to c-bet without committing. I just shoved in pre-flop. And you'll notice that was with 3 limpers, and I did so with about 16 blinds. If there had been fewer limpers, we would have had to make the ISO raise. However, with that much in the pot, about a full 25% of our stack pre-flop, it's okay to just shove and take it down as I did. Easy raise here with the ace-7 suited. This is a coordinated flop. It's pretty good for us. If my opponent had laid out here, I might just shove over it. I'll definitely be c-betting. Don't really want to see a shove here from our opponent. A flat call is fine. Turn card's fairly good for us as well. You can just fold this queen 8 suited. We'll c-bet this again. We're just going to keep on building up this pot. If our opponent shoves here, we will call. We're hoping to commit on the river. There will be some river cards though that we won't commit on. That wasn't a particularly good river for us. We're hoping our opponent checks here, and I'm just actually going to check behind. I think a lot of times here we're beat. If any spade comes off, we obviously get all in. If an ace comes off for the boat, we get all in. But I think in that spot it's just best to go ahead and check it down. Had a monster draw there with a solid showdown hand as well, and unfortunately weren't able to win with it. The kings here, we're just making a small raise. You could shove it, but I think we have enough chips to work with. It's better to make a small raise. Do get a call. Good board for us. Won't be able to get away from this hand. We'll be looking to c-bet the flop and then hopefully commit on the turn. I'll make it about 2/3 pot here. Definitely want to get all in on the turn. Even if a club comes off, we'll be looking to commit. An ace of clubs might be the only card where we don't commit here with this hand. A lot of times we would steal this, but it would commit us against the player in the small blind, so we'll just let it go. It's kind of a marginal steal anyway, and Luck is Real is also a player who's likely to 3-bet shove on us. Fold the Jack 4. We move ourselves back into a position here to have about 8 or 9 blinds, so we'll be looking to open shove fairly loosely before the blinds go up again. Same thing with the 10-6 suited here. It would be a very loose deal from the hijack, but with the short stack player here on the button, we'll just let it go. We're folding only very marginal opportunities. Would still be stealing with anything reasonable. Even like a 10-7 suited, you'd probably see me make a raise with there. And I would call the short stack after doing so, having committed. Anytime I raise and a player with usually like, I would say 9 blinds or less behind me shoves, I feel committed to call in any heads-up showdown based on odds. Check that step 5 game one last time. It appears as though no more players are joining it. It may run, but it's going to take a little too long, so we'll probably just finish out just these 2 games here for you. Try to get one of those step 5s in the future. I think I did one in a previous series, so I think I've shown some of those higher stakes games, but not too many of them load up late at night. I obviously have to get involved here with the kings. Would get involved with a lot of pairs worse than this. Nothing wrong with the ace-9 shove either. Perfectly super standard here. It looks like our kings will go down. Here, Luck is Real makes some min raise. I think he's stealing a lot of the time. However, with a king 9, we don't really have a lot of showdown value here against calling ranges. And he's also raising through a short stack, which he's fully aware of, and he's willing to call that short stack should he shove. So it has to be a little bit on the stronger end of his range than normal. Not overly so, but I think it leans us towards a fold in that situation. Here we're looking for anything reasonable at all. I think we can do better than queen 6 without having an ante present before the blinds hit us, though. So we'll just go ahead and wait for that. Easy fold with the 4 deuce. Also looking for a lot of resteal opportunities here. I would probably even come over the top with a hand like 5-6 suited in this situation, but 4 deuce does not qualify, so we'll let it go. Jack 10 we will not be releasing for 1 blind no matter what happens. Again, for those of you playing in Nevada, I want to go ahead and touch on this since we have a second here towards the end of this session. This site is probably the best site up for sit and goes. Your choices are simply Ultimate Poker or WSOP.com out of the United States. There are some other sites running that are a little less reputable that you can play on. Whether or not you'll be able to get your money out of them, I'm really not sure. I've decided to only play on US-based sites for now on that are fully regulated, just to prevent any kind of occurrence like that in the future. I would, if you're into sit and goes, I would highly suggest playing on this site. If you're into cash games, you can play on either site. They have fairly equivalent traffic. I would say WSOP.com probably has a little more traffic. And as far as multi-table tournaments, both sites are good as well, and you probably would want to play on both of them. The Sunday lineup for both sites is also getting fairly good and consistent. So sit and goes, go with this. Otherwise, either side is viable. I prefer the software a little on on WSOP.com, but Ultimate Poker definitely has a lot more sit and go traffic, which, as you know, is what I like to specialize in. We'll move our last game up here into the center. I'll try to make it a little bit bigger for you here. We're getting close to the bubble stage, even though we still have 6 players. We have one about to be eliminated. Luck is real is at the table. He is, as I've mentioned before, probably the strongest reg you can run into on this side. He's very good. Don't really know too much about the other players. DeBello I've played with before. Don't have a lot of information on him though. This is a committing raise. To flat call this, in my opinion, you'd have to believe you were just strictly ahead of your opponent's range here and just basically being trying to trap them. And this would be exactly the hand you would do it with. There's not much else you could show up with here that I would consider that to be a good play. As it stands, though, I think he played it perfectly. I think he trapped his opponent. As long as his opponent doesn't know he wouldn't flat call with hands other than like aces here, then this is an excellent way to play it. And I believe he probably stacked his opponent because of that. However, even if he had shoved pre-flop, I find it hard to believe that someone could commit that proportion of their stack and let it go. Probably would have had the same result either way, but in this particular situation, I did like how he played that. We'll just go ahead and check this one. We'll just be looking to check this down. Our short stack opponent will live to see another day. Everyone at this table is essentially at 10 blinds or less. DeBello has more, obviously, but we're looking at effective stacks. 7-6 blind versus blind is a 10 blind or less shove. Super standard. And this is kind of a bubble situation already with the short stacks, so that makes us even more inclined to do it. I probably would shove that up to 11 blinds in that situation. King 5 here isn't quite going to be good enough. Luck is real knows exactly how loose to call us, which makes the shove a little bit tighter. Also, King 5 for about 9 blinds effectively on the button is pretty marginal anyway, so we'll just let that go. Would probably shove King 8 offsuit or better, or any suited king there, even until luck is real. You see him bet 200 here into 400, about the half pot when his opponent checks into him. He will do that frequently, whether he has a hand or not. It's simply a good strategy. He's in position. He's only betting half pot, so he only has to win one time in 3. It is a board that his opponent might be likely to limp in with the hand that hits. However, I do like his attempt to steal there for cheap, and when it doesn't work, he just gets out of the way. He still leaves himself with a stack where he can shove. With quite a bit of fold equity, and I think it's probably a pretty good approach most of the time. Don't want to do it every time because it becomes obvious, but to mix that in, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I believe that's what was probably happening there. I'm very surprised to see him not shove any 2 there into what I considered to be a committed opponent. Even if he could see the ace-king, he should have been shoving there. So I imagine he probably was playing a lot of tables here and just kind of missed that his opponent was so short. I wouldn't imagine that would be a decision he'd make very much. Here with the 4s, for 10 blinds, we'll shove any pair into all these players. You should be doing that, and if you're not doing that, you're playing it too tight. Ace 10 is perfectly fine to call with here. Nothing wrong with that. Alright, we're looking at a situation where we have about 7.5 blinds now, and I consider it no longer really a bubble situation because we now have 2 players with around 5 to 7 blinds, and so, well, now that the blinds go up, we're really just looking to get aggressive here and try to gain some chips. I can't imagine folding this ace-10 suited here in much of any situation. If my opponent limps, I'll shove. If he shoves, I'll obviously call. Can't let this go in this situation. He makes a small raise. I don't really see the point of this. This is definitely not a good reg. He just kind of plays his hands in a way that a good reg wouldn't. And you should never be raising into such a short stack and folding. So we know already, even though I've seen this player before, that he can't be that strong of an opponent. He's already making some mistakes that regardless of what his hand is, they couldn't be correct. This is actually going to be a call. Luck is real would shove, as you saw earlier, much worse hands in this situation. We may end up being behind, but we know he would shove just about 85% here, and so with one opponent behind us, we'll have to close it out with the ace. I don't love the situation. As you see, we run into ace-jack here. However, if you saw earlier, he was shoving ace-8 for, I believe it was 9 blinds or 10 blinds into like 5 players, and so we're definitely ready to be ahead if he's shoving for 6 blinds under the gun to avoid the blinds hitting him. Didn't work out for us this time, but I would make this decision without any hesitation, always like this. Against an unknown, you would consider folding there. But even against an unknown, you're probably about even with the range. And Luck is Real certainly knows how to shove wide. He may even be shoving wider than I am. And I know that I could call my own range there, that's for sure. So I could definitely call his, and we'll do that. Here with the Jack High, our opponent should be calling us no matter what with the antes. And so Jack High rates to be behind a random hand with 3 kickers, so we'll just let it go. Same thing with Deuce 9. We'll be looking to shove pretty much any next hand that we see. Standard collision here. Probably this should have just been a shove at the ace-10 suited though. All 3 of us have less than 10 blinds, and Luck is Real only has about 12 and a half, so should just be shoving that ace-10 suited. Would have had the same result, but it's better to just shove that in this situation. And we'll have some more chips shuffled around on this game. Queen 7 is actually the mathematical even hand, and so we will take that and just shove all in here. We're expecting to get called here, not every time, but almost every time. This player's shown a willingness to fold already in situations where he shouldn't, and has done so here as well. DeBello should actually call any 2 cards there, and we're very pleased that he didn't, but he should be calling any 2. And we'll be obviously getting involved here with the 5s. I'll have to keep in mind that this player's willing to fold in situations where he's obviously committed and use that against him in the future. Here we're just going to stop and go. He made a raise that doesn't commit us. We're just going to lead out for 50 here. I don't expect to ever get a fold. We're committed with the 5s against 2 players. Nothing we can do. We had a coin flip situation. Would have taken that even seeing his hand as a slight favorite with chips already committed. Didn't work out for us this time. We had a really good session overall. The last 2 games were not favorable for us, but all the ones before us we were doing very well in, and so we had a good session here. A lot of good results. I'd hoped to be able to get that step 5 in for you. Unfortunately, did not load up in time, but got to see a lot of good shoving situations and resteal situations. We're able to take down some games. So I hope you all enjoyed that, and I will be coming out with further videos soon.